I had a chat with Dr. Burstein about travel and what we can expect because, of course, we've been managing to keep COVID under control to an extent here in New York State. Other states aren't doing so well. So if you are traveling out of state, there are a few things that you have to do. This is what Dr. Burstein had to say about that. Check it out.
New York State has identified 22 states outside of New York State that are known to have very high rates of COVID-19. And so anybody that would travel to those states would have a great chance of being exposed to COVID-19. So, for example, in Erie County, our prevalence rate right now is between 1% and 2%. So, in general, in the community, like 1 to 2 out of every 100 people could have COVID-19. And say then going to a state where the prevalence rate could be 20%. So that's 1 out of 5 people could be infected with COVID-19. And they got to that place because, they're not social distancing. The restaurants and their bars and amusement parks are really crowded. People aren't masking. People aren't washing their hands. So going to these states is you're putting yourself at very high risk of COVID-19. And so many people have sacrificed so much. I mean, there's been loss of jobs, closure of businesses. Kids haven't been able to go back to school. I mean, we've sacrificed so much, and we've finally gotten to a place we have really low rates of COVID-19 in our community. And it just would be so disappointing. It would just really be a disaster if our numbers went up because people were traveling and coming back and bringing in imported cases of COVID-19.
That is how it spread so fast across the world, was from travel. What is New York State doing when people do travel into these high-risk areas? What are they doing when people return back into New York State?
First of all, the state has a presence in the airport. So all people who are flying on direct flights from one of these states that are on the governor's list, they're giving these forms so they can report their travel information. So when people get off the plane into the Buffalo airport, there'll be the state person and an enforcement person at the gate, and they'll be collecting all the forms from everybody. These are also going to be available electronic. And so then the information from the travel forms will be given to the Erie County Health Department, and then we will contact those individuals and place them in quarantine and then follow them for 2 weeks. If they refuse, then they will be at risk of a large fine and being summoned to appear in court for a hearing. We're taking this very, very seriously. There are also a couple of other opportunities for people to self-report or report somebody, in your neighborhood or that you work with, or, a friend or family member that they have traveled and they're not being in quarantine, they're not staying in quarantine. So there's a phone number that people can call to report. And there's also an online form on the New York Pause's website that people can report, somebody who have returned from a state that is high risk for COVID-19. And then the Erie County Health Department will follow up with that.
That's a good way if someone happens to drive in from the state, because that's a little harder for the state to keep track of.
Right. So we don't have people at the in the toll booth, but be careful where you go. Because it's not just about protecting yourself, it's protecting the people, in your family that you travel with, and it's protecting your community when you return.